Next up, we've got Aaron Aldrich from Cage Data. And Aaron and I first met. He was somebody that came out to Devops Days Rockies this year. I think that was the first place right there. I remember meeting you. Devops Days, I mentioned a little bit about that, but I'm one of the organizers for Devops Days Rockies, which takes place out in Denver every year. And Aaron and I got to know each other and drink some microbrew, delicious brews, delicious beers, and talk DevOps after the whole thing was over. And since then, Cage Data has become a customer of VictorOps. We've gotten to know each other very well, spoken at a couple of events together. And so please put your hands together for Aaron.
Thank you. So I want to talk about kind of managing incidents, managing fires, and more than just small sort of one-off incidents like, oh, this one thing is not working and I can fix it by running through my standard tasks. But it's going to come more into those big sort of crisis level events of, everything is down and I need my whole team. Is anyone here management level or leadership in some way in the organization? A couple people? Okay, great. That's awesome. Or maybe if you're not, you may have worked as the lead engineer in some incident or something like that. So that's good. Let's do planning. That's me. I am on Twitter at crazy because I like how language works and I hate when people can spell my name correctly. I'm a DevOps consultant at Cage Data. You can check us out online, or we're also on Twitter at Cage Data. So that's my short plug. So, like I said, for little stuff, it's fairly straightforward. You're going to use your regular tools, but when it gets beyond that is when it can become a challenge. This whole talk comes out of a story that we dealt with a client where we had an issue that started out small. They're in transition, so we're consulting. We're helping them move from some on-site stuff, has a lot of dependence on real physical hardware, single systems, and they have a system that kind of runs their whole operation. It's dependent for all of their user authorization, all of their automation systems, a lot of their file stores, all out of one physical box. So one day, towards the end of the day, we get the dreaded alert of, hey, that box is down. Okay. You immediately send out the alerts, hey guys, we noticed this, we're looking at it. We fortunately had someone there doing work. We said, hey, can you check on this and see if this is a good alert or if something, screwy is going on? And we get back, it just sort of gets worse and worse from there. So, nope, it's down. Yeah, it kernel panicked. It's blue screened. It's off. We said, okay, good. Can we, run through our normal procedure at this point? Can we turn it on again? And we try. We kind of wait with bated breath, seeing what's going on. No, it just keeps looping. Tries to boot an OS, crashes back to hardware load again. So, we've got a system that's essentially dead that ran their entire operation. So that's not fun. That's immediate, okay, all hands, let's figure out what's going on and how we can solve this. We let everyone know and everyone there know. Fortunately, at the end of the day, they say, that's fine, we're kind of wrapping up anyway, we'll just close up early, roll our phones over, we can finish paperwork and we'll handle it. So we say, great, so we jump in, move on site, start dealing with it. What's great for us is we were staging all of this new system with full high availability, less reliance on single systems, all of this sort of thing. So it kind of ties into it. So we'll go through more of how it played out for us. So part of the tools that we have are our context, right? But knowing, like you say, a system is down, what does that mean? Well, fortunately we have the context of, hey, this is the big important system that runs everything. So that was useful for us, we could go through that. We had some of our run books, our standard procedures of let's try and reboot this, but this sort of failed us. It didn't actually fix the problem. We have to go beyond that. Unfortunately, all of our automation engines were taken down with that problem, so these also failed. But what worked was our escalation procedures. This is kind of part of how you handle any incident. We need to know, like Jason's slide said, call Jenny if this still isn't working. That's what happened. We had to call back to us. It's still not working. What do we do from here? And this is important to have working because when you have a small incident, one person can handle it. But when it gets bigger, we really need a full team, and we need leadership to step in and kind of direct that team at that point. So part of our success for this event, as we look back at it, was not only that we had a good group of engineers that could work on it, but that we managed them really well. This was one of those, we didn't want to, our incident was bad and that was a failure. But when we look back on it, the way we handled it was really successful. We wanted to learn all the good things we did from that. Part of it is we had leadership determined before an event happens. So it wasn't something where we had a critical event and now we've got a group of peers, a group of engineers who are all kind of at the same level, kind of fighting to say, oh, this is the best idea, no, this is the best idea. We had people established ahead of time. That was granted by, business authorities to say, nope, you're the one that gets to make business decisions, so that we could have a final say on what happens ahead of time. And we needed to grant that business decision authority as well. It wasn't just they can make engineering decisions, because at some points when you're working with really critical systems, you might need to say, hey, yeah, we need to shut down all customer access to our main systems to lower load so we can actually analyze this. And that could be a business critical decision. You might have to say, we need to sacrifice some income right now in order to actually fix this problem. And if your crisis team isn't authorized to make those decisions, that's just longer it's going to take to actually recover. The other thing we did was delegate that authority as far down the chain as we could. Once we had engineers actually working on problems, they get the authority to fix that problem. And they don't necessarily have to come back to us. If it's something really big, they may have to, just double check to make sure they're on the right track. But if you've got a database admin recovering a database, you don't want them to have to ask every step of the way, like, hey, can I make this change to how it works? We want them to be able to recover it. So part of that came into was also the troubleshooting process that we did. And it seems kind of basic, and it's not necessarily something that leadership does directly, but they have to understand what's happening in this whole recovery process. And part of that was understanding the component parts that were out and what specific things had to be brought up and what specific tasks were required to do so. What also benefit us is, use the Rahm Emanuel quote, never let a good crisis go to waste. We had an opportunity where we were trying to stage a lot of new infrastructure, but required downtime to make moves. And now we just unexpectedly had a really big spot of downtime to make a lot of moves. So we were able to make a decision and say, hey, instead of spending a lot of effort going back to where we were, we can actually use this opportunity to move all of our services forward to where we wanted to end up, which was the call we ended up making. We were at a turning point where we could have spent hours recovering from backups, bringing systems back online, or we could have spent those hours migrating data, bringing new services up, building high availability. So that's what we ultimately decided to do, to not only recover what we had before, but make it better in the end. So once we've got all of these specific tasks, we want to make sure they're broken down into increments so that it's not just sort of vague, like recover the database. It's like, well, what does recover the database include? Okay, well, all right, I've got to set up a new store for that. I've got to migrate the data. I've got to rerun the logs. Everything that we need to do to actually bring that up and online. Once we have these incremental tasks, we want to categorize these for a priority. The first primary priority tasks are, what does it take to make this work again? So it's not something that's pretty, it's not something that might be pleasant, but it gets the job done that you need to accomplish. It brings services back online and gets you at least partially recovered. So if we can get to degraded operations quickly, that's what we want to try and do first. The next tasks we have are what's going to make it whole, what's actually going to restore services and make them as good or better than we had before. These are kind of priority 2 lower down the line tasks. Because you don't want to spend 3 hours trying to make something look just right if no one can log into it. So once we've got all that and we've got priorities, the other thing we did, we started to get very specific about how it all goes through. If anyone knows John Hodgman, he's got a podcast that's fantastic. But he says, brevity is the soul of wit, specificity is the soul of narrative. And I kind of interpreted it in saying getting work done. Part of that is whenever we have conversations and talk to people, we all have the stories that we interpret from that afterwards. So if I say to someone, hey, can you recover user authentication? They might have a different picture of what that looks like than what I'm saying to them. So if we actually can be specific about it and say, instead of, hey, Ed, can someone recover this? And I say, hey, Jason, I need you to recover this task on this computer. We've got a very specific set of work assignments going on people are going to do. It's kind of along the same keys. Instead of in first aid, you don't say, hey, someone call 911. You say, you call 911. That way the task is assigned, the responsibility pushing up. Once we have that, we want to make work visible. So we want to see what people are doing. And that was big for us as well. We weren't just all working on our own pockets. We used the tools that we had, whether it was chat ops, with a chatbot doing some work, or a Trello board to actually say, hey, here are the specific tasks we're doing, here's what everyone's working on, and here's what's been completed. That goes a long way to just moving through the process for us. It allowed us to, instead of spending time saying, hey, are you still working on this? What's the status? Is this up yet? We could just move past that. So that's all very practical stuff for the engineers. What's kind of the practical stuff that the leaders run here is we're managing all of the rest of the human needs that happen around your engineers, because they aren't robots and aren't machines. One of the first things that seems pretty straightforward is just food. If you've got a major issue that runs through major meal times, if you as a leader who's not necessarily engineering these tasks can handle that, that's one less task that they have to split on. Task switching has a cost. I'm sure we've all talked about that, but if you have to multitask between bringing your database back online and what am I going to eat, where am I going to get it, how much is it going to cost, how am I going to pay for it, how am I going to get it here, if they can just solve that whole problem for them, they can continue to focus on engineering and the work that they're getting paid to do. So for us, that was big. We just had it. We said, hey, we're going to order food from here. Everyone good? Great. And we just took care of it. It arrived for them. No one had to think about it. The other part of that is now managing your. Well, I hit it twice. I hit it a bunch of times. I just held the button while I tried to roll up my sleeve. That was terrible. All right. So then we want to manage the actual people that we have on the team. Because it's very easy, I know I can anyway, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate that when you're working on solving a task, especially something high priority and important like major service outages, it's really easy to just keep working past your point of exhaustion, past your point of effective actual engineering, without thinking about it. You just continue to work on the task, you don't think about how tired you're getting or how everything else is going. So the leadership skills needed here, we really want a level of empathy to be able to understand how our engineers are functioning, whether they're getting to that short burnout period, or if they're still being effective. So part of it was we made sure we had people available to make substitutions. First thing we did once we had a handle on the problem was send people home. Hey, get out of here, I need you to rest right now. I know you really want to help, but the best way you can help is to be available for us later. So what happened was, as people started getting tired, as we started seeing people get frustrated over simple things or make simple mistakes repeatedly, we could say, hey, you need to walk away. I know you're doing great work. I need you to take a break. We've got other people that can step in for you, so we don't need you to be the sole person responsible for bringing this back online. And we can bring people in. Especially for this client, they had a day cycle, and that day was going to happen no matter what we did. So no matter how long it took us to bring that up, people were going to come back into work the next day. So we needed to make sure we had a team that could handle those little things. So for us, we had a group that kind of worked through the night. We got pretty much everything recovered. It was very successful. Everything came back up. We were functional the next morning, but there's always those little tasks when someone individually logs in and they've got cache credentials or something's going to the wrong place. And when you've been working for like 16 hours straight, you really don't want to talk to people, and you don't want to tell 6 people hey, just restart it, it'll work. So having fresh, minds and people that are fresh and ready to deal with this stuff come in was huge. It made it great for our customer experience because they're not dealing with the same guys that are totally burnt on this issue. They're dealing with people that are coming in fresh and can help out. So that was big for managing our team, and the next bit of it is public communication. For some of it, it may not apply. You may be applying to internal customers. It's still good to communicate, and some of this still works out, but some of what I'll talk about is specifically to external customers. The big thing is you want to communicate quickly. So as soon as you know about a major outage, you want it posted somewhere where someone can find it, because that's how you find out stuff's not working. I know I've worked on issues when we've had third-party providers. I've been trying to work on a task, it's not working. An hour later, I finally see an outage posted from it. That's extremely frustrating to be working for an hour and a half, not being able to figure out what it is you're doing wrong when you find out it just doesn't work. And making that visible. I find it, personally, I like it best if I'm working on a product and the outage alert pops up inside of that product I'm working from, then I know why it's not working. That's really helpful, as opposed to having to hunt down, go to your support page just to find out there's an outage. So oftenly updating, that wasn't the word, update your customers often. So this is big just for status updates. I know it's easy to think the status hasn't changed, you don't need to tell anyone, but if you've had time elapse, it's good just to communicate, just to say, hey, we're on track, our ETA of 3 hours still looks accurate, everything's going as planned right now, we should be back up, we'll let you know a little bit later. Or just as things change, if suddenly you said ETA 3 hours and 5 minutes later, now it really looks more like 4.5 based on everything else. Getting that communication out and keeping customers knowing what's happening and what to expect is a big deal. You can use tools, I like status pages. Statuspage.io has got a great update, and subscribing to updates are good. That way customers that care can opt in for periodic updates. Customers that are done for the day can let it stay. And the other big thing about it is honesty in updates. The big story that really resonated with me was an outage that Cliffy had a number of weeks or months ago, where the big thing is you'll see here, on working to resolve a backup system issue, an administrator accidentally deleted the production database. I mean, that's a major issue that they could have easily said, something happened with the database, but they totally owned it. They said it was one of our administrators, and it got deleted. Whoops. But I think that honesty goes a long way to building that reputation. They're not trying to hide it. They're not trying to sneak around. Because they're honest, it garners a lot of empathy from the people that work there, that use them as a service. They say, okay, we understand you're working to, and they were very open about what they were doing to recover, how long it would take, so it helped out quite a bit with going through that. And to speak about, people that make mistakes and all of that, some good lessons that came out of that. Some people were like, someone lost a job, but I think the better culture from that was, you just spent a lot of money teaching that engineer a really important lesson about how not to run this. Why would you get rid of them? So I think that was a really big thing too. They were really open and honest about it, and it was really cool. So kind of the end about that, the leader's goal is really to empower your team by removing all the additional barriers to engineering. So whether that's interfacing with public customers, or handling all of those requests about when is this going to work, or just handling the, hey, you need to go home and get sleep, or here is some food for you to eat because you should be hungry by now, is just a really good task for them to do. It may not be directly contributing to engineering, but because you're allowing them to do way more work than they'd be able to do, but they have to split their thoughts between that. So that's my thoughts on their leadership. Liza? The end.
Thank you, Aaron. Okay.